Hey YouTube, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a knife video, and today I've got a neat little blade. This is the Spyderco Dragonfly. Now this particular one is the ZDP 189 and Nishinjin glass fiber handle. Now because of the difference in handle, the weight on this is not going to be exactly the same. So the FRN Dragonflies are going to be a little lighter than the specs I give you here, but so just kind of keep that in mind down the road. The other thing I want to say by way of introduction, keep this in mind through the video. I did not buy this and I do not use this as my primary EDC, okay? I use it as a secondary knife, and so although I really like it and I'm going to be fairly positive in this review, you need to kind of keep in the back of your mind that when I carry this, I'm always carrying something else as well, you know? So maybe I've got my XM18 that day, maybe I've got you know, a pair of two, whatever else. I pair this with a larger knife because to my mind it's just not big enough. You know, consider the fact that at under 2 inches this blade won't even reach across most apples, so you can't even cut an apple in half with this knife. So for me it's a little too small, okay? But for what it is, it's very, very good. So let's get into size and weight first off. This knife is 5.5 inches long, okay? The blade here is 2 1/4 inches, and the cutting edge is like just under, it's 1 15/16, so it's just under 2 inches. The handle is 3 3/16. All right, now the weight on this, and this is where I said keep in mind it's going to be a little different than other versions of the same knife. The weight on this is 2.1 ounces, okay? So still very, very lightweight, but this, because of the stainless steel liners, is a little heavier than the FRN Dragonfly or the, I guess both of the FRN. What I wanted to say is the Dragonfly Salt. It still has an FRN handle, but it's just the H1 steel, okay? So this probably is closer in weight to the G10 Dragonfly at 2.1 ounces. All right, so there you go. That's the size and weight on this. As you can tell, quite small and lightweight. Let me give you a couple of size comparisons. Here is a pair of two closed, okay? And so you think the Dragonfly is only 1/2 inch bigger than a closed pair of two. And if you open it, you can see there's quite a size difference. Now, this is, you know, a pair of two I wouldn't be that worried about getting out in public, but other knives I would be. Here's another example. You know, I might carry these two together. I think they'd make a good pairing, or a number of other blades. A lot of times too, if I'm carrying a fixed blade, just for size comparison, there's an XM18. Since this is a common knife and lots of people know about it, that makes a good comparison. Now, another option for this kind of roll that you might want to consider, rather than just have two knives, is have, in addition to this, something like a Leatherman squirt. By the way, I highly recommend this little multi-tool. I don't think I've done a review on it, but you can see this is even smaller, but you're getting a bit more utility out of that, and it does have a small blade with it as well, okay? So those are some size comparisons and some idea of how I carry this knife as sort of a secondary blade, okay? And as I said, I like it in that role. Now let's zoom in a little. Now this is a small knife, so you know, I don't know how this is going to work out for focus and stuff like that, but we're going to try. Let's come in here so you can get a good look at it. And there you go. So there's the knife, and you can see that ZDP 89 drop point or leaf-shaped blade. One thing that's cool on the Dragonfly is this cool swedge that they have on top. I think that looks really, really neat. It's a nice sort of departure for Spyderco, since they don't often do that on their leaf-shaped blades. It is a full flat grind, and ZDP 189 is super duper hard, okay? So I've only had to sharpen this one time, and that was just to touch it up when I first got it, and since then it's been good. Now keep in mind that I only use this sort of as a secondary folder, so I've usually got something else with me. In fact, I always have something else with me if I'm carrying it, and so that's going to mean that it's probably not getting as much use, although even if it did, ZDP 89 is going to hold an edge like crazy, okay? Now the blade is less than 2 inches, so from here to here you've got 1 15/16, so like just under 2 inches, but that means it's a pretty small blade, okay? So there's going to be some tasks that it's just not large enough to handle. When it does, though, what it does do well is any kind of fine detail task. Like this thing is a scalpel, okay? The edge geometry is ridiculous, and it is intensely sharp. So any kind of small, opening packages, if you've got to get a sliver out or something like that, this is a fantastic option for those kinds of little tasks. All right, let's move down toward the handle and look at lockup and deployment on this. And I'm going to say it this way. All right, I'm going to stay put for a second. There we go. You can see my fingers now, so you should be able to. So lockup and deployment on this is fine. Notice I can do it one-handed, but because of the size, it's a little awkward. It's just small, right? It's nothing about the design. It's not bad. It's very smooth. It's very, it feels like very good quality. I don't know if I can spider flick this or not on camera for you. I can spider flick this if I'm really careful with it. I kind of have to hold it here and do this kind of thing, and it kind of works. But again, it's hard just because of the size. All right, it is a lock back. It does have a Boyd dent here on the back, which, I don't know, it looks cool anyway. Makes the lock sort of follow the profile of the little cutout here for your finger, so it's fine. Often I do close this two-handed just because it's small, okay? So that size makes it really convenient to carry and really, kind of small to have in your pocket. Makes it kind of a neat little tool or gadget, but it does make it just a little bit awkward to work with. Even with one hand, it can be just a little bit awkward. And so this is like, I don't know if you've ever seen someone review a cold steel knife where they really snap shut hard, but I would make the same warning. Be careful when you're opening and closing this knife. Out of all the knives in my collection, this is one that I would be worried about getting cut with. One, it's stupidly, insanely sharp, okay? And number two, it is a little awkward to deal with because of its small size. All right, but so that's lockup and deployment. Certainly good enough lockup, and there's no blade play at all, which is more of a testament to quality than, I'll be honest, I'm not concerned about this blade closing on me because this could be a slip joint, and the kind of use you're going to put on it, it would work totally fine, okay? So let's move on to the handle, okay? So there's that Nishinjin glass fiber handle. Looks really, really cool. It is very smooth, okay? There's no traction at all on this. But again, this is not a tactical knife. It's not even a hard use knife, so it's not the end of the world. I've heard a couple people complain about the slickness of the handle. And when you have the knife in hand, because of its shape, it actually does retain in hand quite nicely, okay? And if you choke up to the choil there, you can actually get all four fingers on it, which to me is pretty impressive for a knife of this very small size. Okay, now one thing that you get on the Nishinjin is the regular pocket clip, and I've been told, although I can't confirm it, that part of that is because machining the Nishinjin glass fiber to get the wire clip to work on here was just not doable. The material is not stable enough and it just wouldn't work. So you do have the regular pocket clip, which does seem oversized for the knife. If you look at the clip side, the clip really dominates this side of the knife. I've kind of toyed with the idea of taking it off, but I don't think I'm going to worry about that, at least not for now. I may do something from the secondary market at some point anyway. But anyway, it's fine as it is, and I've used it just like this, and definitely would not say that's a major complaint of mine, okay? Generally, I find it just totally acceptable. There is a lanyard hole on here, and that's one thing you might want to do is put a lanyard on this, especially if you have even larger hands than mine. It would be nice to have, that lanyard would give you something for these back fingers when you're gripping the knife, especially if you're going to grip it down a little bit lower. All right, so the handle is comfortable, it is smooth, and of course the Nishinjin glass fiber is very attractive. Looks really cool. All right, so that's one of the major features of this particular knife, is just that the aesthetic that comes from that Nishinjin glass fiber. So we've talked about the blade, we've talked about the lockup and deployment, we've talked about the handle. I should point out that that pocket clip is single position. That's the only thing I forgot to mention. Overall, again, I find this to be a really good little knife. It's very handy to have in your pocket, and it's one of those knives, you can throw in your pocket when you're around the house. It's lightweight enough that you could put it in, your running shorts or whatever, and the weight's not going to be an issue. And that's going to be even more so the case if you go with one of the FRN versions. I am kind of particularly interested in the salt version of this knife. So what do I think of it overall? Let's back out here. Great blade, you know, well built. It's definitely comfortable and useful, and so it makes sense why it's as popular as it is. Again, I would not consider this my only EDC blade. I think, you know, if someone asked me, hey Kevin, should I buy a Dragonfly for my EDC? I would say no, you should buy something bigger. If you really like the Dragonfly, you'd probably like the Domino, you'd probably like the Cali 3, you'd probably like the Sage series of knives. They're all similar blade shape and kind of put me in mind of this knife. So there's lots of other options out there that are big enough that I think they could serve as an EDC role. Even some of those, the Sages, I feel like are a little too small for my preferences as well. All right, so there you go, guys. Great little knife, works really, really well in sort of a secondary role. I hope you enjoyed the video, and we will talk to you soon.